In a world where law firms constantly miss out on new leads due to sloppy legal intake, and often because they just aren't answering the phone, two marketers aim to provide a glimmer of hope.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to do the announcer thing.
Thank God, because that hurts my throat. You do the intro.
Gladly. I'm Tony Prieto, and this is my colleague Nick Werker. Believe it or not, we're marketing professionals.
Well, I think you're the professional, but we are true experts when it comes to all matters legal intake.
For over a decade, our company, Answering Legal, has helped ensure that growing law firms never miss out on connecting with new leads.
And now we're ready to share our trade secrets and help make the legal world a better place.
Or at the very least, help our listeners shore up their lead capturing processes and convert more callers to clients.
Welcome to the Legal Intake Experts Podcast.
Let's dive right in.
We are back once again here on the Legal Intake Experts Podcast, presented by Answering Legal. And in preparation for this, I want you to know that I not only drank pre-workout, but I had 16 ounces of coffee, and then our sponsor, Celsius, is today's sponsor of the podcast. I appreciate Celsius for sponsoring the future of this podcast.
I mean, our audience is lawyers. I think it might be illegal to say something is a sponsor if they're not.
No, it's wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking.
Yeah, magical thinking.
I want to put it in the frame. Do you remember the this is in 2014, 2015. This is a Kawhi Leonard post-game presser when Kawhi Leonard was the best player in the league, and he's going to sit in his chair, and somebody very kindly left him a red Gatorade for him to drink post-game and whatever, and he picks it up and he just mutters this under his breath, not to anybody. He goes, "Not sponsored by Gatorade," and throws it in the trash. It was so funny. But anyway, okay, I'm ready. I'm caffeinated is the point. So we're only on episode 2 of this series, which means that we can't go into all the advanced tactics just yet. But before we dive into the weird and wonderful world of legal intake, I think we have to nail the basics.
So I can tell you something. When writing blogs about legal intake, which I have done a lot of, I always mention that starting with the basics, just like building a house, you got to start with the foundation. And if you don't, you'll end up with a bunch of really nice furniture, and then it'll all get rained on, snowed on, whatever your inclement weather is, wherever you are. And the point of this metaphor is that you will end up spending a lot of money bringing leads in, but you won't be capturing them.
I like the metaphor. What is the furniture in this metaphor? Is it literally furniture, like buying fancy furniture for your office and like a fancy credenza and nice fountain pens, and you don't have any leads?
It's advertising money is what it is.
Okay. I like the physical vanity of that. So I do want to start with this because this is such a hot topic that I see everybody talking about. It's getting a little redundant, but it is super important, right? Is making sure that your process and your script for legal intake is in place. It's a lot of, I think, marketing companies are starting to get really involved in this. I think because of churn, right? Is you say you're with some marketing company and they're delivering clicks and leads and attribution and everything. And you meet with the law firm owner, the managing partner, the marketing director, and they have nothing to show for it. You open the P&L. Me and Joe were talking about this morning. You open the P&L and you're not driving any growth. There's no cases in the pipeline. And you look at, oh man, the marketing performance is down. The leads are bad. But what is your process for intake, And so let's talk more about that. How can firms start the process of putting an intake script and form and just whole process in place?
So what you really have to do is take each call and identify the goals, right? The goal of your intake process should be to turn leads into clients. But you want to make sure that those leads are the right kind of leads for your firm. So the goal of intake is really twofold. It's to qualify leads and it's to secure them. And the way you can do both of those, luckily, is by the same thing. It's by coming up with a a script, a step-by-step sort of guideline to each call so that when your intake person, whether it's you, I hope it's not you, or your receptionist is answering the phone, they can look at this guideline and say, okay, I have their name, and they're entering this, hopefully, into a form. I have their name, I have the type of case, I need a little bit more information, and turn this into a conversational process. And the way that you can do that is by nailing down your script early.
Yeah, I love everything that you just said. And you know this about me. I'm a big work backwards kind of guy. And I like to align on goals and objectives first. So this way we all know where we're going and sort of like start mapping how we want to get there. And I read books lately. I shouldn't say a lot. I used to read, now I read. And there's this whole concept of like flying a plane, and you have to be perfect about flying the plane intentionally, because if you're 1 degree off, you can end up very far from where you want to go over time. So what I'm talking about here is stages of prospects that come into your firm. So I like to keep things in the eye, and I'll tell you about our internal process, and then I'll tell you about the firms that I see having the most success when it pertains to mapping out their intake process. So for us, somebody fills out a form on our website, and they get put into a stage in our CRM called qualified null. Now, the reason that we do that is because if you fill out a form on our website, most likely you're qualified for our service. Once an account executive or a member of our team speaks with you, they move you to a different stage of the CRM that automatically updates what we determine that prospect or lead is called. And so usually that moves into a sales qualified lead. Once you move through our process of like onboarding, signing up, you get named a bunch of different things. So some of the most common ones that I see in law firms are like somebody calls in, like obviously phone calls are still the biggest way that people contact law firms. According to Clio, I'm not just making that up off the top of my head. So somebody will call in, and your intake specialist or your receptionist or your third-party answering service takes the phone call, and they do what you're talking about. They have a script, they go through, they have a conversation about the problem that the person is facing, personal injury, criminal, whatever. The intake person takes down all that information, has a conversation with that person, and then defines next steps for that prospect. What they do internally is mark that as an intake qualified lead if that person has a case and they're going to take it on based on a number of factors that you predetermine. Once a lead hits intake qualified lead, they usually have a consultation with an attorney, whether it be the law firm owner, if you're a sole practitioner and you just have help, whether they speak to your trial lawyer or one of your associates, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. They then speak to the attorney, and during the consultation, you figure out whether or not that person has a suitable case for you that you're going to take on, and whether or not you convince them to hire you. And once that happens, that the attorney deems them as qualified, they move through that process of retainer, signing an agreement, like a contingency agreement. You define next steps about what the success looks like of that campaign. And so I think when you work backwards and define what stages you need a prospect to move through, then you get to where you're going, which is like, okay, now I know conversationally how to tweak things to get more better information. Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference. So I want to ask you, because you're the one talking about like the script, is how do you make a better first impression on clients at the initial, like the outset of them reaching out to a firm?
It's sort of part of the problem of not having a script is that the last thing you want to seem to a prospective client is disorganized, is unprofessional. And if you just have whoever's answering the phone pick it up and say, law firm, how can I help you? Or, just like, not even how can I help you? There's a lot of disorganization that can happen just in that initial phone call. What are you calling about? What kind of case do you have? That having a script will help to mitigate. In addition, you just want to make sure that you're saying hello. Like, it's just polite, right? You answer the phone, say, this is our law firm. welcome. How can we help you? And overall, professionalism is sort of projected from the person answering the phone over the phone to the prospective client. And professionalism is like one of those qualities that it's intangible, but it has a huge impact on whether or not they're going to hire you. Because at the end of the day, this person with the legal issue wants help. They want help that they can't have. And so they think in their head, lawyers are professional. They are, they have all kinds of stereotypes about lawyers. And for better or worse, you do kind of have to meet them halfway and present this image of the lawyer in their head that they're looking for in order to get them to hire you. And an intake script will help you sort of hone that image that you're presenting over the phone.
I like your insight there. So I've obviously spoken to a lot of lawyers over my tenure here, and the first question that we ask usually in the onboarding process is, how would you like your phones answered, as it pertains to how we're going to pick up the phone. And almost invariably, most law firm owners will be like, what do you mean? And we're like, how do you, like, good morning, good afternoon, thank you for calling the law office of Attorney Prieto, how may I help you, HMIHY. You get what I'm saying. So by now, hopefully law firms starting to see the light that an intake script isn't just a nice to have. It's sort of like table stakes, because you have to have a plan for how you're going to help people. So let's talk about the big picture and actually give people some tips that they can use today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've written about this topic a bunch. I have a million opinions about it. It obviously varies from law firm to law firm, but there are sort of structural tips that we can give on how to build your intake process. At the end of the day, right, like the questions you're going to ask, the individual questions you're going to ask are going to be different if you're a criminal defense, personal injury, family, whatever kind of law you practice. If you get a call from someone in jail and you ask them how their divorce is going, it's just not going to work out, right? So we're not going to give advice on like exactly what questions to ask, but we can absolutely tell you what kinds of questions to ask, what to look to get out of this, and to reverse engineer your process from there.
So, what's funny is I am one of those people that I just end up putting my foot in my mouth a lot. I'm one of those guys who, like, you're out to dinner and like the waitress brings you your meal and they say, enjoy your meal. And I say, you too. And so if you don't really have a plan and you're not used to talking with people and you're uncomfortable, like, obviously that's the reason that you're listening to this podcast, is you want to get better at talking to people and convincing them to go with your firm so that you can grow and you can help more people. That's really what we're trying to do at the end of the day, which is why I want to drill this home, that intake is sales and you have to do sales. You don't have to cover yourself in grease and snake oil to do it, but you can be helpful, you can be a person, and you can talk to these people one-on-one. So what I want to suggest is that you have to have a specific plan that you can, like, kind of rehearse in your head, right? There's actually psychological studies that say that acting situations out actually helps reduce anxiety if you're a person that's anxious about getting on phone calls and convincing clients to go with you. This advice isn't for everybody, but it is so helpful to, I always say the term, meet people where we're at. So I want to use your example about, like, somebody calling you from jail. You're a criminal defense attorney, hopefully, when they're calling you for jail. You wouldn't say very casually, like, how's it going? You know? You just wouldn't. And I don't really mean to be funny. I mean to be poignant. Is like personal injury. It's the same thing. Like, go in with a plan. And I think, for me, this is how I always sort of lead with intention, is I try to be as authentic as possible, because I think people will hear this advice and say, well, I don't want to be inauthentic and I don't want to be salesy and I don't want to do this. But if you are a criminal defense attorney and somebody calls you from jail, the first thing that I would do is I'd be like, how's everything going in there? Are you safe? Is this your first time being arrested? Are you uncomfortable? Like, tell me what's going on. I want to help you. I've dealt with this sort of thing before, so I have advice on, when maybe we can get you out. if your family can come visit you, what we're going to do about bail, what we're going to do about your arraignment, how long you can expect to be in there. Like, tell me what's going on with you so that I can talk to you through what you're going through, because I'm your advocate, you know? Same thing with personal injury. Like, somebody calls you and they're in an accident, like, you know, it's a tough situation. Are you in a lot of pain? And you can go deeper, right? Like, you can ask people the situation. Are you in the hospital? Did you get out of the hospital? You're going to work. And just like, give a shit, you know? I think that's what people are sort of lacking. And this is any service-based business, right? I'll get super deep for a moment. I'm trying to find a new counselor. And I call offices and they're sort of like, yeah, you know, somebody will call you back and it's this and it's that. And I just think to myself, because we do this all the time, that like, you guys could be doing so much of a better job to make people feel better. But also it's the healthcare system and like, you don't really have a lot of choices. So yeah, cut me off, please. I'm going way too far.
I mean, that's a good analogy, because there is a very high demand for mental health services. There's high demand for legal services as well. The difference is that there are fewer mental health service providers than there are legal service providers, which makes that impression so much more important for you, the lawyer, because there's only so many options within your insurance or whatever, find counseling. There's a lot of options for legal help. And if you aren't making that impression, if you aren't convincing them that you care about their case, then you simply won't get their case. And yes, sales is a dirty word, but the thing is, you're already doing it. That first consultation with a prospective client is a sales call. You may not think of it that way. It may not feel right to think of it that way, but that's what it is. You are calling them, getting their information, and convincing them to hire you. And the way you do that is by making them feel like they're the most important person in the world to you at that moment. That's like the number one thing. And the way you do that, like you said, is by asking questions that are, yes, they're qualifying questions. You are figuring out whether or not they have a case, whether their case is right for you. But also, the questions will establish a rapport. It will make them feel like they have someone in their corner. And if they feel like you're in their corner, that's it. You've got them, because that's all they're looking for.
I want to, before I talk about the next thing that I want to talk about, I want to make a statement. I want to give lawyers, law firm owners everywhere, intake professionals, license to do sales. There's a quote from The Wolf of Wall Street. This is true, from Jordan Belfort, the character. I'm sure he did say this in real life. It was Matthew McConaughey's character saying this to Jordan Belfort at the restaurant. He says, the goal is for you to separate your client's money from their pocket and put it into your pocket, right? And so what that tells me is the crux of why people are so hesitant to call things sales and to be sales and to deal with salesmen is because they feel like the salesperson's only motivation is to separate that customer from their money. And here's where I'm giving you license. If you give a care, I'm going to use that phrase, if you care at all about the person that you are helping, your primary motivation is not to separate that client from their money and put it into your pocket. Your primary objective is to help that person. If you have to convince that person that you are the one to help them, that is a good thing. Because think about how many other people out there don't care.
And to steal another quote from that scene where Matthew McConaughey steals the show in that movie, a lot of law firms, you're putting up rookie numbers, and the way to pump them up is get better intake.
No, don't do that. That's the whole point of this. That's the whole point of this. I do want to talk about selfishly. So I want to talk about using a third-party answering service, a legal answering service, to help firms remain highly organized as they move forward with handling a new leads case. So a lot of what we preach, especially when we're talking to like new prospects for us, when we're talking to law firm owners, office managers, and anybody who has like a real operations role in a law firm, we talk about this all the time, is it's not only the first impression that matters so much when getting a new client, but it's really the way that you take care of them every single step of the way. And I say this constantly, I sound like a broken record, but the number one complaint about lawyers from the Bar Association is lack of communication. And so, what an answering service, legal answering service. I'm not going to disparage anybody. Obviously, I think you should choose me. That's neither here nor there. What it allows you to do is have an open line of communication with not only potential new clients, but with existing clients every step of the way, because we can just facilitate conversations and keep these clients of yours updated, because you can tell us what to respond, what your response rate is going to look like, and then we can tell them when you're going to get back to them. They can schedule specific milestone conversations with you about their case, and all of that is done for you instead of you like trying to do everything yourself. Am I crazy?
Yes, but not on this. The thing that you're talking about here is that complaint rate to the ABA is like, it sometimes shocks lawyers, but what it is just a mismatch of expectations. Clients are really concerned about their legal issue. You are usually juggling multiple of these cases at the same time, right? Their case is not the most important case in the world to you. You have several others that are probably the same priority, but to them, it's the most important one. And what they need is, when they start freaking out about it, they need to be able to call you and have you tell them, hey, we're moving, everything's good, or yeah, there's this problem, we're working on it, whatever's going on. They want to hear that from you. Now, you have a million other things and a personal life, and you just don't have time to be constantly doing that. The way to keep those clients happy, to meet their expectations, is to have someone, in this case, a 24/7 legal answering service like Answering Legal, to answer the phone, say, hey, we've got you, we got you. I'm going to pass this message along. The attorney will get back to you as soon as possible. And yes, that sounds... maybe it sounds to you, if you are cynical, insincere, or ineffective. But the reality is, when it's a human being on the other line, there's a little Alfie cameo. When it's a human being on the other line saying, I hear you, we're going to get to you as soon as possible, it is so reassuring just on like a basic psychological level, because human beings are social animals. To hear that from a person, it just works.
I completely agree. I always talk about, especially in marketing, that everything that you do in servicing a customer, your marketing, your messaging, everything is your brand, and your customer service is part of your brand. And I could go on forever. I found that so like I find the humanization of all processes of a law firm to be really important nowadays, especially with the rise of AI, where it's like automated responses, emails, case updates via text. I appreciate what you're saying, because like there's nothing more reassuring to me than speaking to a representative or getting a call back from my attorney who's like, yep, I'm on top of it. Here's the update, and we're taking care of it together.
And ironically, it's one of those things that you can actually delegate or automate away by hiring an answering service, but it increases the human interaction in your firm, which is a rare thing these days, to find a service that will make your law firm more human.
I love working with you, man. All right, we got to do some business. We got to do some bookkeeping, some administrative tasks. So I know, Tony, that we referenced Answering Legal a few times during today's episode. I kind of didn't. I said an answering service, but we are Answering Legal, and so you should check us out. Head to answeringlegal.com to learn more about our virtual receptionist. If you're lazy and you don't want to type that in, right below where you're reading this is a link to
and we'll
the
also
website.
link a bunch of resources about legal intake. I've written literal thousands of words in blogs about developing your intake process, what questions to ask, etc. Those will be in the link beneath this episode as well.
Cool. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Legal Intake Experts. All episodes of the show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.
See you next time.